Don't you give up now. The struggle is hard, just keep on going somehow. We've come so far, yeah, don't you give up now. Just push on through, yeah, keep on going now. And what you know is true. So I wrote that song as personal encouragement for anybody who is struggling with life's challenges right now, but also for us all as we work in our mental health and addictions and homelessness sectors, trying to hold on to some of the progress that has been made over the years while we dream of a better future. Now, if this country's health service was a business, and some might argue that it is becoming that, then the marketing department can take an early lunch. Topics like depression, anxiety, smoking, addiction, and now even suicide have got much more prominence in our national conversation, and the shame and the stigma associated seems to be lessening. Sure, psychosis and alternative realities have got a long way to go, and it's really clear that discrimination across the board is alive and well. But I do feel encouraged by our new services, the simplicity of 1737, where you can call or text for free if you need to talk, are light years away from when I came out of the mental health closet in the 1990s. But what are we talking about? What are my options? How far have we really travelled from the asylums? Well, we now have step care, which I think is the love child of a particularly malicious, pedantic accountant and one of those people who can complete a Rubik's Cube in less than a minute while blindfolded. And I imagine these two souls trapped in a room made entirely of whiteboards with an infinite number of pens, and were told they could only be let out once they had found out the cheapest thing you could do for every person at every stage of an existential crisis. Pondering the meaning of life? Here's a website. Wondering why you're here? Take our self-assessed quiz. Questioning what it's all about? Call or message us for a brief chat. Staring into the abyss with an utter sense of dread? Pop in for a brief assessment. Convinced life isn't worth living, especially yours? Take our course of medication. And so on and so on. And the interesting thing that I find about the step care model is that they show you all the way how to get up, but never how to get down. So a little bit like Coke and Pepsi, possibly National and Labour, we have the illusion of choice. When really it comes down to two. You can pop a pill, or you can talk to someone. Or, in our world, you could do the digital equivalent of talking to someone. And that second one is actually profound progress. Mental health care used to be like the Ford Model T car. He said any customer can have any car painted in any colour he wants.
As long as it's black.
As long as it's black. And that's what mental health care was like, and still is like in many ways. You can have any care you like, as long as it's psychiatric. Now, this is not to assume that psychological care is necessarily any better. When I started off in that field, we would read studies like, we'd put a rat in a cage with a bottle of water and a bottle of cocaine, and the rat overdosed every time. So drugs is an incurable brain disorder and should all be illegal. What they found is when they put the same rat in a cage with a bunch of other rats and some interesting things to do, they would do what most of us would do, is take a little bit of cocaine, So that's the basis of our options, medicate or communicate. And from what I can discern in nearly 25 years, there's very little evidence for either. A lot of links have been made between areas of the brain and the chemicals that swirl around them, but these are correlational, not causal. So sure, it's interesting, and sure, we should keep investigating, but it is not proof. And the evidence base for the pharmacological treatment seems to be best summed up by it works for some people, some of the time, in some circumstances. And we don't really know why. And then we compare our talking therapies and the digitalization of them to care as usual, and we get really excited when they're shown to be no worse. So like our solitary rats in our cages, choosing from the options we are given and hoping for the best. But I think we can do better, and I know we can do better. eMental health began in the wake of a quiet revolution in this thing that we call mental health. The recovery philosophy of autonomy for alleged lunatics like me was redefining the human experience as beyond a health issue. And peer support was legitimizing the ancient art of people a little further down the path, supporting those to catch up. But at that time, as if by magic, into the arena stepped the technology that could really enable this, to empower us and connect us in ways unimaginable when most of us were growing up. Suddenly it was possible to have more power in your pocket than in the whole of history. Access to unlimited knowledge, diverse perspectives, and the ability to reach out to anyone, anywhere. And it was exciting times. And even though we're all frustrated at the glacial pace of change, I think it still is exciting times. And the excitement isn't the technology, it never was. It's the wild frontier of trying new and different approaches to sit alongside, or possibly as an alternative, to the things that we know have limited appeal and limited success. Now I believe we're at a very interesting crossroads at the moment. We can become complacent, follow the easy path, allow eMental health to slip into business as usual, be absorbed by traditional ways of doing things because they're traditional, and see them as merely novel extensions of a system that we probably wouldn't recommend to our loved ones. Or we could take a different path, arguably a harder path, but arguably a more meaningful one, and allow eMental health to guide us, to challenge us, to inspire us, to create better and different systems. A place where we would enthusiastically send our loved ones. And for me, that is worth fighting for, like the hammerhead shark. So I want to leave you with a question that you can ask yourself and explore the answers of. So the question goes like this: if not you, then who? And it works on two levels. So the first level, you ask yourself, if not you, then who? As a recognition of the power that you have right now in your roles to not just make a difference, although I do like that term, mainly because of the acronym, but rather than make a difference, let's make an improvement. So if not you, then who? Now sometimes that could feel really tough because we're all only got limited amount of power. So the question works on the second level. If not you, then who? Who can you email? Who can you phone? Who can you ring up and rally and get behind an idea and again look to make an improvement and not just a difference? So I left the city a long time ago. I've been thinking about the rat race when I was looking at the poor rats in their cage. But of course the thing about the rat race is that even if you win, you're still a rat. So being back in Auckland has really reminded me of how tough it is to run that race. And when I left Auckland, I got a lifestyle block. Now to a city boy like me, a lifestyle block is pretty much a farm. And this is the song that I wrote when I got to my little farm. Hey, oh, maybe right across the galaxy, there's another farm with another me, where the chickens go moo. Cause that's precisely what these alien chickens do. And the pigs go cluck, cluck, cluckety, cluck, cluck, cluck.